So this is the rear disc guard from TM Designworks. That is my last protective part for my dream bike, and then put on back here. The most involved part is removing the brake caliper from the factory carrier, because this obviously this is an entire carrier, not just the shark fin. But yeah, there's quite a few little parts on your brake caliper, and you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So I have the bike up on a stand, and the axle nut's a 22. So the first thing we're going to do is just take that off. So set that aside, keep the dirt off it. And now the trick here is basically you're going to take your chain off, put the chain off to the outside, and the whole caliper carrier slides forward as you get that chain off to the outside, like that. And then you can just pull the wheel off. So now you can basically get the carrier out. There's a little spot here on the slide. You move it forward to that point, and then it'll pull off to the inside. So the first thing you got to do is take the brake pads out so that you can slide the caliper off these two guideposts. There are two guideposts on the brake caliper, one here and one here. So there's a pin, one cotter pin, holding the pad pin in. So you want to just pull that off, and then you can just push out the pin. There's tension on there because there's so it's a little bit of difficult, or there's a little bit of resistance on that, this spring right here. So if you pull down on the spring, it makes it easier to pull the pad pin out. And the pads just kind of fall forward. Now there's a right and a left pad. The pad with the extra metal on it goes to the caliper piston. I think it's a heat protector. Once the brake pads are out, this is supposed to just slide right off the carrier. Yep, it's coming. And there's a couple rubber boots, and so those got to come with you to the next. So there's a rubber boot there, rubber boot here. It's got good grease on it, which is nice. Okay, the next thing is we got to remove this pin here, which is thread locked in. So I'm going to put it in a vise. Also, we got to keep not only this rubber boot, this plastic spring here has to transfer. Okay, so I got the carrier inside my vise, and because this generates heat, they recommend using a high strength thread locker. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to use red. I already had this, so this is an 11. And that is tight. There we go. And it's this hole here. These two holes are for the caliper guard that comes with it. The brake pin goes there. So while this is in the vise, I'm going to go ahead and pop off this retainer for the pads. There's a little clip on both sides. And it goes on the new one right here, same place. And go ahead and take this little rubber boot off, put it in. Now, okay, I want to put some grease in there before I cover that up. Just get the thread locker on this pin. Oh, this was in there pretty tight, so I'm gonna torque her down pretty tight. That is in there tight. So now I'm going to get some grease for this hole. Well, this Maxima waterproof grease is really sticky stuff. Just get it rubbed in there where the pin makes contact. And there's still some factory grease on the rubber boot. And it just slides in there like that, and we're done with this. Okay, so now back over here to the bike. Got your boot here, your spring in here, your thread locked post pin there, which goes in here, and I just want to show you the pin in the back that's attached to caliper doesn't need to be removed, but it goes right in here. So you just line up the two holes, and it slides on perfect. And we are ready to put the carrier back in here. So I'm gonna go ahead, put it in the notch, slide it back. It's on the frame, and it's ready to get the brake pads back in. The little notch here, it goes back. So the back of the brake pad goes down into where that little stainless steel spring was removed from one carrier to the other. So it's kind of at an angle right now because I don't have the pin in yet, but that's where it's supposed to go. Oh, the pin went in a lot easier than it came out. There. That is finished, ready for the wheel. So this kit comes so it'll fit two different axle sizes, either 20 or 25 millimeter, and it comes with a bushing. And the Husqvarna actually is the smaller, so I need to put the bushing in here before I put the wheel back on. Wheel in, you got to get it. I've done this many times before. Anybody's taken the rear wheel off. But if you're new to it, got to make sure those brake pads are spread apart to get your rotor disc in. Spreading the brake pads apart just a tad. Chain. And you have to have your wheel axle ready to go in. It's a little trickier when there's a guard there because you got to clear that as well. Rolled it forward, that helped a lot. Getting the bearing inside, it's pretty tight. Chain's kinked up. You just got to keep pressure on that wheel. Things are lining up. We just don't have the chain all the way on. There we go. Now I got the chain on. Grab my axle. So you gotta kind of keep the pressure on until you get the axle all the way through. The axle had great grease on it. Looks like they used Maxima. axle. Put the chain guide in that side, and pop the chain guide on this side. Just note from the factory, the big bump is facing forward on your chain guide. I'm not going to tighten it all the way yet because I want to show you one trick that I've seen a couple of videos. Slavens is doing it as well, which is to put basically, before you torque your axle down, if you put a rag in your chain, crank back on it, it actually forces the wheel forward onto your chain tension guides. So that's a pretty cool trick. That's what I'm going to do. So let's roll it onto that rag. So the torque is 59 foot-pounds. Right there, 59. Yeah, we're almost done. So the last thing is the caliper guard, and it just goes on here like this. I put a little blue thread locker on here, and these are 8mm. And it includes nice little metal bushings on the plastic. This is plastic. So one thing I noticed in kind of looking over this TM Designworks, look at how the caliper guard protrudes way out. I'm not real keen on that, so I may actually leave the caliper guard off. So it's all done. I was just trying to show you what the protection looks like, and the disc is like protected by that cover. Cover goes in a little further over the disc too, which is really nice. Keeps some weeds and sticks out of your brake caliper and rotor.